Hello there, people from behind the screen. Today we're going to be doing a Q&A about B.O.T, my piggy fan game that I've been making. I'll be answering some questions related to it, but as you can see I'm kinda in the middle of nowhere, so let's move to somewhere a little more professional. So the first question comes from Stone6, which actually has been a friend of mine for... actually most of these come from friends, but still, I appreciate them. Does Catherine speak Spanish? That's the only question I could think of, lol. Well, I mean, it really depends, right? Catherine's a really flexible character, you could say, when it comes to her nationality. In B.O.T, the game, she's Canadian. She's just from Canada, right? But if you want to, you could say as well that she's Spanish, from Spain or from whatever country. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. You can make her nationality whatever you want. But I mean, she's in the actual story that I'm writing right now, she's just Canadian. So she probably would not speak Spanish, considering she's kind of well, she's not the smartest, to say the least. There's also a friend of mine, but just has that name in the account. Okay. So they ask, what time period does B.O.T is B.O.T in? So, I mean, I tried to make it as accurate as possible, but again, I didn't live in that time, so no idea. But it basically takes place in 1985, specifically. I will not specify months, because I want that to be sort of more flexible, so I won't specify them right now. But anyways, and also they ask, where does B.O.T take place? Example, does it take place in the United States, London, Europe? Well, it takes place, I wanted to leave this as a sort of secret for my next game, but it takes place in the United States, somewhere in the United States. Again, I haven't lived in the United States, so I don't really know if I'll portray it correctly. My apologies to Americans, but anyways, it takes place in the United States. Next comes from Raspberry Pencil. What was the hardest model to make for B.O.T as of now? Well, this is kind of a hard question to answer, because it's actually going to appear in the next chapter, which hasn't released yet. But of chapters which have already released, I would say probably that one bat that appears in chapter 5 in the bend section. I mean, probably most of you can't picture it right now. I believe the name was Bernard, something like that. So yeah, I have it in the files right now, so not bad. Would you ever be open to hiring more people to help with working on B.O.T? This question came from B.O.T, which is actually another YouTuber. I would recommend that you check their channel out. So basically, I would like not to hire more people for B.O.T, because here's the thing, right? I personally have asked people for help, and they are listed in the contribution section. I will update that, since I've kind of quote-unquote hired someone to help me with illustrating, because otherwise it would be way too much time to take in one chapter, right? Like chapter 6 has taken a year to make, so imagine if I had to do all the drawings in that exact chapter. I've done a lot, but still, like, it helps, right? It's just a little help. I don't want to really hire more people, because I feel like if I hire more modelers or more scripters, I mean, scripters would be the only thing I'm open to hiring, but still, kind of skeptical. If I hire more modelers, it wouldn't exactly work out, because I have a set style in mind. I have ideas of how I want my characters to look and to behave like. So it's not really something that I want to just put in someone else's hand. Next question comes from Puppet, which is also frequent in this channel. They have their own. They ask, what's Catherine's favorite song? Now, this is kind of a hard one, right? Catherine, let's just say she's not the most educated and probably doesn't have a favorite song. I'm going to leave it as that because I don't want to tell more than I don't want to really spoil some stuff about her, which I think could be interesting. But yeah, the next one comes from Lotham the Lion and asks, "Why did you call it B.O.T. or bot?" You guys can call it bot as well. I personally call it B.O.T., but you can call it bot. So I call it that way because um, I had a friend and we kind of just started this project. That friend eventually, as I moved out to somewhere more in the south, so to say, that friend, I kind of lost contact, right? And B.O.T. kind of started to be developed all by myself. I overhauled the story completely in 2021, I believe, and from there I just kind of started to make it my own thing. So the reason why I call it B.O.T. is because I used to talk with this friend a lot, alright, and we didn't have it really clear if it'd be a game about. We had it clear that it would be a PvP fan game, but we didn't exactly know if it would be about infecteds or if it would be about you as an officer kind of just cracking down on criminals around the city. That's also why Catherine came to be as a character, right? So we used to refer to the bots of the chapter as bots, right? As just a bot. So eventually I kind of just started calling it in sort of when I had to think of a name, it's the only thing that really I could come up with, right? Bot, because it's just something that references that in a way, and I think it ended up having a meaning, of course, inside the story. Like B.O.T. actually stands for something, but it started as just a placeholder for whatever would result in. And now that it has a clear future, I'm glad that it could get a meaning after all. And those are all the questions that came from Twitter. Now, on YouTube, someone also asked a plethora of questions. In fact, this person was the one to suggest that I do a Q&A in the first place. And I'm glad that they suggested it because answering these questions has been kind of fun. So yeah, they ask, will there be a torture in the game? Now this is an interesting question, right? The full B.O.T. story is completely written, and I already have pretty much the whole idea of how I want it to be. But there's some characters that don't have a set design. So well, I can't tell you that, like, for example, all the characters, at least a couple of the characters that you guys have seen in the game so far, didn't have a design prior to me actually making the chapter in which they appear in. So, would there be a torture? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe, right? If I make some character have a gas mask and try to burn you, it could perfectly be. The thing is, I'm not exactly sure when or if that will happen. So I can't really answer that for sure. Now, on the next question says, will non-canon skins like Mr. Stitchy play a big role? Here's the thing, right? I want you guys to realize, I don't blame you for asking this. In fact, I think it's a really important question that you ask, because I have to leave this clear. B.O.T. is a completely separate universe from Piggy, right? Piggy has the insolence, all that stuff. I wanted to make it more science fiction. Don't try to interpret that, because I know where it's going. And some might not take it as exactly science fiction, but I wanted to distance the story away from Piggy, right? So no, there would not be a Mr. Stitchy. But if you've been, say, a follower of my Twitter for pretty much since I created it, you may recall some interesting characters that may or may not appear. So yeah, just take that into account. Please don't go look at my old art. It's absolutely cringe. Please don't do it. But take that into account. Will B.O.T. ever have another game like Intercity? So I mean, there will be some interesting announcements in October. That's all I can say. October this year, actually. What are your thoughts on making a story somewhat similar to the original Piggy? I mean, I think it's perfect. It's perfectly fine, right? You can make a story that parallels Piggy story. I mean, I don't find a problem with that, but you have to do it right. That's the thing, right? If you're gonna have Willow, if you're gonna have all these, especially Willow, Tiger, and Pony, which are probably the most fleshed out characters, yet the most mischaracterized in the whole game, you have to get them right. Because if you get them wrong, then I mean that kind of ruins the whole thing. That's also one of the biggest critics I had with Branch Realities Chapter 2, because I absolutely hated that ending. It completely threw away any possible chance of empathy with Willow, and more so mischaracterized Doggy, which is incredible considering he literally does nothing in the whole game. But you know, again, I think you just have to get it right. So yeah. Also, no beef with Ranch Realities, by the way. I mean, Chapter 4 was great. I still don't like Chapter 2, but I don't want to insult the actual like guy that wrote the story, which I know on Twitter. So yeah. Anyways, that was pretty much it for today's Q&A. I think they were really interesting questions, and I'm open to do more of this. In fact, if you guys want, you can leave a comment asking for more stuff if you've played the game, of course. The game will be in a pinned comment, if I remember to do so again, because that's something important. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I would appreciate if you like and possibly subscribe if you've enjoyed this. And yeah, anyways, goodbye.